time's going on and I'm visiting the clubs regularly. I really want to get to know the members, the ideas. We haven't launched Pathways yet. But my home club, unfortunately, got my practice of what I was going to talk to the other clubs about. And there was a point where my members asked me, well, Charlotte, you don't seem to be very happy. And I said, no, I'm really thinking about quitting Toastmasters. 3 times I came very close to quitting. I could not understand it. And here I'm supposed to be a guide and teach other people and motivate it. So one of our members, Dr. Cynthia, said, Charlotte, the magic thing, find 3 things in there that you liked, which forced me to really delve into it and find something that I liked. I did, but I found out for me, I require every way possible to try to learn things. Not everybody learns the same way. Me, I like to be able to also taste it and smell it. I mean, I really need a lot of help in learning. I'm one of those people that can't tell the difference between P's and D's, and I reverse numbers all the time and all that stuff. I have other talents, but I have these challenges, not unlike a lot of other people I know. So my problem was I couldn't see the forest. I was seeing a whole bunch of leaves on the trees, all these details. Click here, do that, do that. And that was making no sense to me. So I decided that I was going to stay, and my phone is ringing, but it doesn't ring long enough for me to ever get to it. So I'll quit in a second. I haven't figured out how to make it to ring longer, so it finishes fast. I then wrote the first manual, which Diana had printed back in April of 2018, I believe. It was after we were March. And this, when I was changing and editing the leader's guide, Lori told me, okay, each time you do it, you put numbers beside it and say what edition it was. That started taking up a whole page. I have no idea what edition this is because I've rewritten it several times. But this edition that I'm going to talk about today, which is on the website, which I discovered there's a thing I've already got to fix on one of the things we're going to present. There's always something to fix. It has the official date of January 1st, 2021. So it's the newest revision. And I'd like to walk you through it. This is on my website. It's available for download. There's no charge. And this is called the Leaders Pathways Guide for Leaders. It's probably good for all members, but it gives the leaders something to use when mentoring and working with your members. If you would put the first slide on and let's go through them, Assad. We're going to do
And
some things.
the link is in the chat room. The
Oh,
link to Charlotte Drake's,
yeah.
it's in the Pat room.
Okay, this is the cover. You'll notice that on the cover, I'm showing 3 paths, that magic 3. When you want to give a speech, you'll never do. It's best to work with only 3 stories or 3 points to make. So choosing 3 things. That's the cover. So let's move on to the table of contents. This will give you an idea what's included in there. Oops, scroll back up. In the beginning, I talk a little bit about my journey. But one of the things I always like to share is many people don't know why we're called Toastmasters. And that goes back to when Dr. Smedley had at the YMCA had people coming in from their campfires to the city to get jobs. And he learned or realized that the people coming in from their farming environment didn't know how to do job interviews. Well, something that's been around for a long time in the human culture, and that is making a toast. The smallest form of table topics is that you lift your, I'm trying to see where my picture is there. You lift your glass and you make a toast. You give a thought, you share something. So that's actually why we're called Toastmasters. You're doing a short little speech. When Dr. Cynthia told me to find the 3 things I liked. When I studied pathways, I define it slightly differently than they do. They have presentation literacy, which the CEO of TED Talks talks about how vital this is for today's market, particularly from his viewpoint of how big our megaphone is. You know, now we're talking all over the world by Zoom and the rest of it. I also look at it by the mere fact that we're not connecting very well. Our communication skills are lessened so much because of our technology, the whole business of teenagers. As a matter of fact, one of my customers told me how she just recently got a job working for a country club to do a course for the teenagers or the people who were members of the country club on soft skills. The parents were saying that their kids didn't know how to talk to each other. So that was one of her new jobs. The second thing I found was contextual learning is a real big portion of what Pathways is about. Contextual learning is identified as learning something that you can put to practical use in your job, in the work you're doing outside. And then, of course, project management, being able to have a project, start it and finish it, and putting together teamwork. Then moving on to chapter 2, the basics. There I described 11 paths, the 5 levels, the 3 classifications, and the 3 groups. I'll talk more about the 3 groups just as we go down. And then I list the project list and numerical list information, numerical order, and how to get involved. Moving to the next chapter, one of the things that I observed was after Pathways went out, I was visiting clubs, and some of the clubs, new members had taken paths that had high performance projects as one of the required project they had to do. And they had no idea what that was going to be. And the types of projects some of them had really weren't appropriate for their goals and for their skill level. So what I did was spend quite a bit of time evaluating all the paths. I do own all 11 paths. And I decided that personally, I picked one path. However, there is a person online here, Diana D said, no, Charlotte, you can't just give them one choice. So I broke it down to 3 groups. And in group A are the 3 paths I suggest for anyone beginning or anyone who is interested in a shorter path. In other words, group A is less time consuming than path, and you'll see what I mean more about that. Whereas group B gets more involved as far as how much time you have to commit and maybe more advanced technical skills. And group C, of course, even more advanced. And the incentives. Then moving down to chapter 4, these are descriptions about each project that's within a path. Okay, on to the next one. One of the things that's most important is remembering who the most important person is in the club, the member, right? So knowing what your member needs, wants. Sometimes what they want, oh, I want to be CEO of the company. They don't have the skills for it. So it kind of comes down to when you're mentoring or interviewing a member, is identifying their skill need in addition to what their personal goals are. So this is a form. You can fill out a paper, just do a blank piece of paper and just do a general interview. But this one kind of helps you to ask some questions that will give you guidance. So this form's again on there. You can download it, make copies all you want. We'll go on to the next thing, which is the 3 classification. And here I discuss how I divided them into those different groups. Now, the 3 groups that I define are different than what TI describes. They call it public speaking. Well, I call it, as TED Talks call it, management and leadership. So they define the grouping and the classifications grouped by those groups. Then these are the 11 paths. Of course, we started out with 10, it's 11 now. There are 5 levels and then the 3 classifications. So it's more definitions. You can read them and be more involved. Okay, moving on to the next PDF copy. Okay, I had to see the forest. Now, I remember when Diana first saw this, she said, oh, and then the next time she said, I got it. I see what it is. She, of course, she's a computer genius type person. And so it wasn't that difficult. On the left-hand side is the item product. That's the item number for each project. On the next one is the number of pages, which is one of the things that always kind of puzzled me. I understand that that was, I guess, about 10% of those people that signed up for Toastmasters, only 10% ever finished the CC manual. I don't know if it was the time that it took to work on a speech or what. But in my mind, they gave it so much more work because there was only 4 pages if you were in but 4 pathways and you knew the previous material. There were only 4 pages of definitions of the projects. Here you'll see the number of pages that are involved in the project. The next columns, if you count from the left, no, the right, see, I have that challenge too. I have a scar on my right hand that helps me know which is right from left. But anyway, from the right, you go 4 over, you got PM, which is presentation mastery. That's the one I recommend. And you go down and you'll see on all of the paths, the first level, everybody has the same thing. And that means level 1, that's the required. Then level 2. So when there's a L there, that tells you the level and it tells you it's required. Where there's a check, that means that it's a elective. Right now, that doesn't mean much, but later on, it ends up being a major map that you can go back to and see how things are related. For me, it was necessary for me to see what pathways look like. So that's my picture of pathways. Moving on to the next PDF, which is, what are we on? We're on page, okay. This is page 16 in the manual. And this is just an outline of presentation mastery. This focuses on public speaking. Level 1, it shows 3 projects. Now that really fools you. And this is kind of an example of some of the stuff that happens to you. So you got to get into some of the tricks or, well, I can't think of a word for it. Anyway, it's not just 3 projects. It's actually 5. Because first time I went through it, well, done. And then I realized I missed 2 of the things in it. But I have it laid out for you in another way. Then level 2, those are required, 3 projects there. Moving down to level 3, your required project is persuasive speaking. And below it are, you choose 2 of these projects. And for level 3, you can, and you'll see that they're the same ones that keep picking up in all the other paths, but those are the electives you choose. In level 4, your required project is managing a difficult audience, and those are your electives that you choose one from there. Level 4 is you prepare to speak professionally and reflect on your path, and you choose one elective. Now there's something a little secret in that one, but I'll explain that later. Moving on to one of the things I'm most proud of is the tracking sheet. And you want to let Miss Cassidy in?
We got her. Got
Okay,
her. Go ahead.
got it, great. This is, those of you who are familiar with the Company Communication Manual, it's the, I call it the project requires the required action, okay. The tracking sheet is similar to what was in the back of the manual that we used to have. This way, you can keep track of what you have to do. For me, I also make suggestions in pencil of what I might give as a speech. So I have an idea of it. So level 1, you see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to do there. But one of the projects has 3 parts to it. That's the full part that fools you. So that's one of the little things that doesn't sometimes come through when you're reading it fast or reading through the project. Level 2, those are the 3 required projects. You fill in, oh, and on the left-hand side, you'll see is the how much time, then the code, which is actually the item number, then the description, then you put the date in, the title, your evaluator, and who verified it. Level 3, that's the required project, persuasive speaking, and you fill in 2 electives. Now, later on, I'll explain. You'll see my account, the AHGE, that's general evaluator. You'll see I've got it listed on another page. Grammarian, evaluator, timer, Toastmaster, and table topics. The ones in red are required. I'll talk more about that a little later. Level 4, this is the editing, that's a mistake. Ignore that blue line going across there. You have a 10 to 15 minute required speech and you pick 1 elective. Level 5, here's one of those little tricky things. You've got to prepare to speak professionally, that's the required one. You pick 1 elective, then you hit complete, and guess what? You're not really done. It comes out back and you do the reflect on your path. So you have 2 completes in level 5. Always seems to be some little extra things. Okay, I'm going to take a breath and can we go off screen for a bit, see if anybody has any questions at this point, and then we'll come back to screen sharing.
I have a
Okay,
question.
Charlotte, we do have one question, which I'm not sure how well it's been answered, but what are the challenges that people often get with pathways? Besides the fact that it's not clearly presented in any one place, except in your handout.
Well, one of the challenges is you're not stupid, the software is. I know that's not a polite way to say it.
No, that's correct. That is a polite way. That's not what I would say, but that's a polite way.
Yeah, well, I'll tell the emperor when he's naked. And
Okay.
I'll also say that the software is not consumer friendly. I mean, it needs to be fixed and hopefully it will get fixed. Also, it's a separate computer. When you're on the TI Toastmasters computer, you're leaving that and you go to Pathways computer. So you're in a different computer and Toastmasters pays them per person. They don't even own that. And they're fixing it piece by piece, which I won't go any further talking about that because it's nothing at this moment that I can do anything about. All I can do is help you find a way to deal with the bumps in the road. And some of the bumps are that just remember, it's not you, it's the software. And
2 things. 1, the software sucks, and that's being polite. The next question, in presentation mastery, it requires.
I didn't say that. That was Peggy.
You didn't. I did. You can quote Peggy. Peggy said it.
My mother.
Next question.
My mother sitting on the shoulder, she always had soap in her hand because I grew up in the day. If you said a bad word, you had to get your tongue wiped with, well, it was ivory soap, so it was a nice soap. Okay, any questions?
The other question is with the presentation mastery saying dealing with a difficult audience and preparing to speak professionally. These are, quote, difficult, unquote, projects. Is this a visionary is it visionary communication easier? It's, Charlotte, you want to take that away? It's
Okay, here's what I want you to always remember. Go back to that sheet of when you interview your members. The most important person in the whole club is your member. What does that member need and want to get out of this? You need to think outside the box sometimes. What's the most difficult dealing with a difficult audience? You might do a story about talking to your teenage children about sex or something. You might tell a story about having to deal with a difficult audience rather than necessarily creating an audience. What they suggest in the project is that you set up hecklers or something in your audience. If you're not comfortable with that, just take one small part and be creative about that. And as Oh, I like to use the term seasoned member. We're not the old members, we're the seasoned members. As seasoned members of Toastmasters, with our experience, our goal is to help people become comfortable with speaking. One of the things that I'm not happy about is the time we have to spend with the technology, with the software, and some of the things that aren't easy to understand instead of focusing on the skills and the goals that the members need. So if in your mind all the time you're thinking, what does this member need? What skills do they have? What do they need to focus on? For instance, if they put their hands in their pocket or they're doing too much Italian talking with the hands all over the place, is their body language something that really needs it? If they're talking in a monotone and stuff, if their vocal variety needs more work. As a seasoned member, guide them into looking at the skills, not to worry so much about the project they've been assigned, but what is it you can help them with the skills. So it takes more work for us seasoned workers members to try to help other members be get get out of the material what they need. Did that kind of answer the question about that? One of them was
keep
about
going.
the audience. What was the other one?
Yeah. We've got those. Let's give them a chance to answer. Let's go ahead and keep on going.
Okay, where are we?
The audience and
oh,
one
okay,
was about
here we are.
which
Yeah. Now,
project is in
notice
which.
on level
Go ahead.
On level 3, I had the boxes that went across that were listing the facilitator's jobs at a meeting. You have to post the jobs in your My Account on Pathways computer. And I'm showing in the diagram where you get it. And if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see that you're filling in the dates. Now, the computer, nobody sees this. I experimented and put 1830 in one of the dates, is that when I did it. A computer doesn't know what date you did it. Nobody knows it. All it knows is if you don't fill those 3 in, it won't let you move on to level 3. Unlike if you're in business and you don't have your expiration date, for instance, filled in on your credit card, it flashes on the screen and tells you what you need to fix. Pathways doesn't tell you what you haven't done that you need to do. So that's one of the little glitches, my opinion, that you need to make sure that you fill those dates in. Okay, let's move on to the next page. One of the things that I think You should encourage members and maybe talk about to members is the path to your DTM, the higher awards, the other positions. Now, not this isn't right off, but how do you get a DTM? It turns out if you plan ahead, you can get a DTM faster than you could in the traditional program. You need to do 2 paths. You need to be a club officer. That's 12 months. I've got this written out for you too, but this is the chart. Then you need to be either a club sponsor, a speechcraft, or youth leadership, or you need to be a club mentor or club coach. You need to be a direct district officer, and you have a DTM project. The TTM project is very much like a high performance project for those of you who have done it. And I have more information. There's more in the book on that, and there's more on my website about that. Moving on to the fact that, of course, I like to make forms. So
let's go back one screen. Quick question. If we need 2 paths for a DTM and TI gives us 2 free paths, and we want to minimize the overlap and maximize learning, which path pairings would you recommend? I said 2 from the A path.
I'm sure, sorry, I don't understand the question.
Okay, go back to the the A, B, and C groupings.
Maybe I ask it. Since we need 2 paths, right? And then we are getting a free path now. So a lot of people are trying to choose the second path. There are 2 types of people. Some people might want to choose 2 paths that overlaps a lot to minimize the work. But the other type of people want to choose 2 paths which are totally distinct, and so they don't have any overlap, and so they can maximize the learning.
Easy to answer. Get my book and look it up. It's free. It'll get a description and you can identify which paths are more appropriate for it. You know, that's on, we'll get to that. That's coming up actually.
Okay.
Right after the tracking sheet, page 10 or page 39. Yeah, this is the track
right now
for your DTM. The 2 paths you fill in, the club officer. You don't have to do these in order. I call it the 7 steps to a DTM, but you don't have to do them in order. You start working ahead of time. Okay, club officer, that takes a year. Boom, you start that right off and you got that year out of the way. You could maybe work a youth leadership thing sometime within that year. So you can work it a lot faster if you plan ahead. So this is kind of a guide for that. Let's move on to the next chapter 4, which is page 41. I think you have to go to, here is the projects. Now on the left-hand side are the project code number. On the right-hand side, they're in alphabetical order because I like to work with the short numbers rather than the long name. Spelling's also one of my challenges. So, but either way you can find them. Flip to the next page. In the book,
Here to page 43.
This is page 42. In the book, every project that's within Pathways is described. So you've got what it is, if it's required, the purpose of it, an outline, and what you need to do. So you can get an idea of much more about every project and the whole thing. All 59, is it 59? I think it is, 59 projects.
Yeah.
So then looking at that, you know that chart, that big ugly chart, when all the lines going down, you can go across and see what you've got as you required. And you can look those up. Are those required the kinds of things you want to do? And your electives pretty much say the same. So you can put the whole thing together and say, oh, okay, this is something that'll work for me. Does that answer you, Daniel?
Do I want to do podcasting? Therefore, I want to do these 2 paths. Or I don't care about podcasting, so I can do this path and this path. It helps her out. It helps you structure the choice of path choice based upon what that
Or
person
am
wants.
I interested in just really working on speeches and not having to have long-term ones? That's the group A one. Group A one.
Yeah.
Group 3 will take you more time. Group B will take more time, and group C will take you even more time. If you're looking at your timeline, because it's one thing we all have the same amount of is
It's time.
on how much time you're willing to put in besides what specific things you may want to add. Okay, there's just a couple other side things that, see, we wanted to go to
So
the,
welcome page, the welcome.
yes, the welcome.
Yeah, hold on, let me-
What I recommend that you give to new members is this booklet.
I'm going there.
Oh, no, okay, this is
Yeah.
an
Yeah,
example. Okay.
here we go.
This
Welcome book.
booklet, Welcome to your Toastmasters Club. This information used to be in the Competent Communication Manual. You can find it on Pathways, but it's not all together in one place. Here it explains the officers, basically the officers' jobs and all the facilitators' jobs, a little bit about Toastmasters. I recommend you have these, print them out, and give them to a new member. Welcome to our club. And this is what we do. So they physically have something that tells them how the club works. They may not read it all, but they've got a place that they can easily.
So
Then
this is a 20-page PDF file you can download from the website, and it's free. You don't have to pay anything there.
okay, and then for all 11 paths, there's a booklet. How many pages are in each booklet? I've forgotten. 28,
This one has 18 pages.
18 pages.
18, 20 pages.
Yeah. So there's each path. If oh, you only took the front page of it. I have a booklet for each path that describes specifically. This is also easier than even going back to the leader's guide and making out. I've laid out for you what each path looks like, so you can look at each path and see what is available, what are the required, and then descriptions of each one of the projects. Okay, that's it for the slides. Let's do head-on questions, talking, and